Koan number 70, rubber cement sculpture, is another kind of simple, silly, playful thing that you can do at home. It's just covering a whole, what is this, poster board or whatever, covering the whole thing with rubber cement. I didn't record myself doing the whole thing. You only see me doing the very end there, but the whole thing is covered in rubber cement, and then let it dry, and then just like rub it off, and it balls up, and it's a lot of work for like one little boogery thing, but it creates this little sculpture, and it's quite cute, actually. Koan number 71, personally identifiable information acquisition, analog. So this, as it says, this was the only Koan that was part of a gallery exhibition during the span that I was making the Koans. Since I completed them, there's been some others that have been part of an exhibition. But anyway, this piece was specifically created for our MFA exhibition. This was the exhibition that I was making the title tags for back in Koan number 69. So the piece is this grid of computer hard drives, hard disk drives, spinny type. I had a friend in Carbondale who was like an IT guy, and he kind of found out I was interested in learning more about just computers and how they work and stuff. And he had just a bunch of old computers sitting around like IT guys do, and he busted one open for me and just showed me like all of the different parts that were in it. And he had like a spare box full of all of these hard drives, and he opened one up, and I was fascinated to see what it actually looked like inside. And it was quite beautiful. There's this perfect shiny disc inside that when you spun it around made this like really high-pitched annoying sound. And if you touched it, you know the oil of your fingers left like a really distinct fingerprint on the surface. And so he had a whole box of these spare hard drives, and I said, gimme, and I opened them all up and nailed them to the wall. And as you can see here somewhere, there was a sign that said "Please touch," so that people would interact with these and spin the discs and hear the annoying high-pitched sound and learn a little bit about computer hard drives and how they work. And in the process of doing all that, they are leaving their very distinct fingerprint on the surface. And so that was like a metaphor for leaving your digital fingerprint, or digital footprint, as they usually say. Koan number 72, letters typed while fixing my K key. There's all the letters there, and it looks just like gibberish, but this is a document of me putting my K key back into place. So there it is, popped out, and I opened up a text editor so that as I was pushing this key back into place, it was documenting all the other keys that I happened to hit with my hand while I was trying to snap this back. So the letters become actually kind of a graph of physical space, because obviously each letter is mapped to a specific key on the keyboard. So if you follow the map here, kind of, I O O J M I K I J M L M K, like you can see kind of the pattern of where I was pushing at any given time in this process. And then at the end, I finally get the K key back on, and then I'm like just testing it, hitting it repeatedly to make sure that it works. So you have all the K's there at the end. Koan number 73, 10-minute beep. This is a set of instructions, and it's based on my watch here, which is a classic Casio calculator watch. And when you start the stopwatch on this thing, it beeps every 10 minutes that pass. So I started my stopwatch at midnight, and every time the watch beeped, I tried to remember what I was doing at that time. And I didn't write it down. I just had to keep trying to remember every 10 minutes of my day. And then the next day, try to write it all down, which of course is unsuccessful, because that's 24 times 6, whatever that is. It's pretty much impossible to remember all of those different moments. But it's a really interesting exercise. And out of all of the Koans, if I had to pick one to say you should actually do this, like actually try it out, it would be this one. There's a lot of Koans where I want people to do, like I want you to plug in your vacuum cleaner in the middle of your house and see how far it will stretch in every direction. I hope that you do that. But I also think that if you don't do that, like you still get something out of the piece just from like seeing my execution of it. In fact, I forgot that I had done this, but in the back of my Koan notebook here, I found the other day a chart that I made. I don't know if that's in camera. Let me see. Here we go. A chart that I made that is, what does it say? Degree to which instructions need to be followed in order for the piece to be realized. So this is like a continuum that I made with 108 Koans right in the middle, along with Bob Ross and Soloist. What a combination. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have like Yoko Ono and Fluxus scripts, which like Yoko Ono is like the extreme where, her instruction paintings where they really, some of them are maybe impossible to do. But the point is that you like imagine them. You imagine what if you did that without having to actually do it. And then on the other extreme is stuff like paint by numbers, and some other stuff. But anyways, yeah. So I placed 108 Koans right there in the middle, on that continuum. So I guess I was thinking at the time that, well, pretty much what I just said, that like you get something out of it by doing it, but you also get something out of it by just watching me. This one, though, Koan number 73, what I'm getting at is that I think this one goes a little more toward the side of you need to do it in order to really get it. Because just the process of trying to remember everything else that's happened in the day while also like being present in the moment to remember what you're doing now. It's kind of it's a bit of a brain fuck. And also what's really interesting is just to see how much of what you do, like what you're doing at a given moment, is not really representative of what you do in a day. Like, you know, you have things on here like at 11:10 I was throwing away a Kleenex. Not really something you would normally think of like, what did I do yesterday? Oh, I threw away a Kleenex. Or, you know, a lot of the time you're driving in a car, or you're just doing some mundane thing between what we would normally consider like the actual things that we do in a day. So it's just like really actually pretty interesting to create the structure of every 10 minutes that forces you to pay attention to things that you wouldn't normally pay attention to. And we won't talk about this triple X here. Koan number 74, non-existent Koan. This Koan totally disrupts the flow if you are going through each Koan by hitting next, these next links here. Hit next, gone, and you can't do anything on this page. You have to hit back. And like the only way to move forward past Koan 74 is to go back to either list view or grid view and click on 75 here. So if you were going through using that next previous navigation, then you would probably think that this was a mistake. There was a problem with the website because you don't know the title of the Koan until you hover over it on the grid view. I know my video is kind of cutting off, but Koan 74 right over here, you hover over it and it says the title there, non-existent Koan. That's the only place the title actually appears. So non-existent Koan, it doesn't exist. There is no Koan 74. There's no web page here. There's no file that exists at this URL. So it's kind of like a meta thing, you know, with 108 Koans existing on this website. This used to be a 404 error, which is your standard 404 not found. Just means that you've requested a URL that there's no file at that location. And so the browser will display a 404 error. And what was kind of cool about this is that unless you create your own custom 404 page, then your web server will serve a 404 page. So depending on what web server you're using, web host, your 404 page will look different. So when I created 108 Koans, I was using a web host called Hurricane Electric, and it's the message that it had here was something like this. It didn't look exactly like this page. It didn't have like all the stuff on the side. It looked more like this page, just like white and plain black text, but the actual text of the message was something like this. The object you requested, 108/74, does not exist. So that specific language, does not exist, was the inspiration for the title, Non-Existent Kōan. And then there's just a weird sound outside, kind of creeping me out. Anyways, like gave me the willies. Koan 74. What was I talking about? Non-existent Kōan. Yes. So I've moved servers twice since building the website. So each time I moved to a different server, this page looked different. And it had different text. Recently I just decided that I wanted to create my own custom 404 page. So like if I do something like that, 404 page not found, and so I have a 404 page that actually matches the design of the rest of my site. So for Koan number 74 here, I switched the error that you get from 404 to 410 gone. Indicates the resource requested is no longer available and will not be available again, which is more accurate than 404 actually, because it won't ever be available. So now it's gone. It's gone instead of non-existent. Koan number 75, staple removal. Looking at this now, I'm not sure if these photos are self-explanatory or not. Maybe I should have included some text here, but in case it's not obvious, these are essentially before and after pictures. So there's a telephone or light pole with all these staples in it where people have stapled flyers, and I then removed all of the staples from a certain section of that, and there's all the staples that I took out. So this is similar to other pieces I've done, where I really like the idea of taking something that people interact with, that people use. People are sticking staples into this thing, and it becomes this kind of collaborative thing over time. It's not, when people interact with this, when they use it, when they stick a staple in here, they're not thinking of that as an artistic act. But there's an aesthetic here, right? And it's aesthetic that's created by lots and lots of different people, all doing their own thing, contributing their one little piece to this object. And so then I come along and modify that somehow in such a way that it calls attention to this ongoing process, so that when, hopefully the next person that came and stapled something to this light post saw this squared blank section where someone had pulled out all the staples and just stopped for a second and just said, I mean, that's really all I'm going for, is for somebody to briefly stop what they're doing, have a flash of a moment where they are kind of disrupted from their daily just doing whatever they were doing, and they're kind of like looking at this from a new perspective. And then when they make their contribution by stapling in their flyer, they're kind of more aware of that contribution. Koan 76, Balanced Diet. Oh my God, it's another pun title. What is the matter with me? So, this is a video of me eating a donut off a string or a piece of yarn. And it's inspired by Sylvia telling me about her days as a Girl Scout, and this was like an activity they did as Girl Scouts. I guess just kind of a fun team building activity or something. And we were both laughing about this, and I thought it was pretty awesome. So I wanted to recreate this thing that Sylvia had done in her youth. And way back in the Koan whatever, I don't remember what number it is. There's the one that's image stabilization is the title, where it's just the camera pointing at a white sheet of paper on a desk, and it's like totally freaking out. The image is shaking all over the place. This is an example of a Koan where I forgot to turn off that image stabilization on the camera, and so it looks like the camera is actually moving back and forth, swinging with the donut, but the camera was actually completely stationary. It was just this zany, whacked out image stabilization feature that made it look like it was following the donut. Anyways, yeah, I'm eating a donut off of a string, and I fail at this, and it falls off to the floor. I do a pretty good job of it. I ate most of it, but here's the conclusion. Oh, damn it. Koan number 77, Sleeping Koans. This is almost a kind of in memoriam of all of the Koans that I thought of in my sleep, or in a kind of in-between sleep and waking state, that didn't make it totally into the conscious world. I don't know if everyone has this experience of dreaming, and like in your dreams you think that whatever you're dreaming about is like really super important, and that you like need to keep dreaming about it in order to like figure this thing out. And as you start to wake up, it's like you're fighting to resolve the dream and remember what it is, so that when you wake up, you in my case, this was the only thing that I was doing at the time. I was a TA for a couple classes, But other than that, I had no other job. I was, it was my final semester of grad school, so I think I might have been in one other class, but other than that, it was just working on my thesis. And so like my entire existence at this time was 108 Koans, and so obviously that's what I'm dreaming about. And so I would start to wake up with these like really this feeling of I've dreamt this really significant, important thing, and it's a amazing idea for a Koan, and I need to just fight to remember it when I wake up, and then I wake up and I have no idea what it was. So this Koan is just in recognition of all of those times that the idea slipped away from me. Koan number 78442 is a charming little koan that documents the process that Sylvie and I had to go through whenever we wanted to open or close our windows in our living room. This kind of harkens back to, I think it's Koan 12, where we are trying to open our kitchen drawer that's stuck closed. We were newly living together in this little house in Carbondale, and this was the first time for me experiencing this domestic partnership, and all of the little things, all of the little rituals and processes that you develop when you have a domestic life with someone. So these windows were really stupidly designed so that you had to kind of, in order for them to fully close, you had to like push them from the outside of the house so that you could actually like push down the latch to lock them shut. So it was much easier to do with two people. And while annoying, it was also kind of nice to have this thing that required both of us in order to do. So I documented that, and the title 4 for 2 is a reference to the Stuart Saunders Smith percussion composition called 2 for 4, which I performed when Stuart Saunders Smith and Sylvia Smith were visiting campus. And I still have the glass bottle that I used. The composition 2 for 4 calls for someone to blow into a bottle. So this is the one that I used, and Stuart Saunders Smith signed it for me. It says, "To Derek, best wishes," and Sylvia Smith signed it, "Happy 2 for 4." Koan number 79, someone covering my holes. This is a little intratextual here. That the title is kind of the reverse of Koan 35, where I covered someone holes in the wall. This is someone covering my holes in the wall, the holes that I created from Koan number 71, when I nailed all of these hard drives to the gallery wall. And when I walked back into the gallery one day, I was hoping to, I already had the idea of doing this Kōan where I would, I photographed all the holes, and then I was going to come back in after they were all patched up and just have that like before and after. And that was going to be the Kōan. But when I walked back in the gallery to get the picture, I happened to walk in right when somebody was actually patching the holes. So that was cool that I got to get that picture. It was blurry, but anyways, it's there. And it's kind of a little bit like the other Kōan staple removal. It's this in my mind, a collaboration, although with everyone else that's involved, they're kind of like not aware that I'm thinking of it like that. For me, this is like artwork. I created this art and I put it on the gallery wall, and then created more art with the process of repairing the wall. But to the person who's actually doing that, it's just work. And there's like an interesting relationship there between the artist and the gallery worker who's like cleaning up the mess of the artist. And I wanted to celebrate that person, kind of in a way like Soloit, where Soloit writes a set of instructions for a drawing, and it's the workers in the gallery that actually execute the drawing. I wanted to just recontextualize the work that the people in the gallery had to do in order to clean up my mess.